This next section focuses on levels of classification. We classify life based on characteristics and likeness to the organisms within these groups. So classifying life is kind of like putting life into little categories. The three main categories that we separate life into are known as the three domains: bacteria, archaea, and eukarya. Bacteria are single-celled organisms, and they are prokaryotes. Now, bacteria and archaea are both prokaryotes, while eukarya are eukaryotes. Prokaryote basically means that they evolved before the nucleus developed. So prokaryotes do not have a nucleus to their cell. If you don't know what a nucleus is, we will get into cell structure in a couple weeks, and when I go through cell structure, I will go back through the difference between prokaryotes and eukaryotes. With bacteria are kind of unique because they have this substance in their cell walls known as peptidoglycan. Peptidoglycan just helps us distinguish the bacteria from the archaea. Bacteria, like I said, they are all single-celled organisms. Some of them cause disease, some of them don't. Many of them are beneficial in the environment and essential for nutrient cycling. Archaea typically live in extreme environments. So places where there's very minimal competition because no other organisms can survive there. So they live in like lava flows or hot springs under the ocean. They live in really salty conditions, like the Dead Sea. I call it the Dead Sea because of the high salt concentration. Nothing can grow there. Well, archaea are found there. They live as psychrophiles in these really cold areas of Antarctica. So archaea live in these crazy extreme environments. Eukaryotes, that's where we have a majority of the organisms that you're familiar with. So animals and plants, fungi, protists, all of those organisms that you kind of typically think of when you think of living organisms, we have those under eukaryotes. Eukaryotes, and in the domain eukarya, they do have nuclei in their cells. So that kind of distinguishes the prokaryotes from the eukaryotes. Now going down from the domains, so top level would be domain. Down from there we have kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. And here are some examples of how we label these. So the kingdom, Animalia, phylum, Chordata, class, Mammalia, order, Carnivora, family, Felidae, genus, Lynx, and species, Lynx rufus. This down here is the scientific name. So the genus name is listed first and it's capitalized, followed by the species name, which is lowercase. And that's how we would write all of our scientific names. And you'll also notice that it's italicized. So we classify the organisms then by kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. For a quiz or exam, it is important to know the order of these levels of classification. So on the top would be domain, and then we have these. Now we're going to run through the 5 kingdoms. So we ran through the 3 domains. Next up is the 5 kingdoms. So the first kingdom is the kingdom Monera. Monera consists of the bacteria and archaea. And examples here include E. coli, Staphylococcus. In the kingdom Monera, they are all unicellular. And these organisms have a diverse amount of characteristics. So We have a whole section about the kingdom Monera at the end of the semester where we'll go into more details about them. Some, again, can be free-living, some can be pathogenic or disease-causing. So Monera, all single-celled, bacteria and archaea. The Protista. Protista consists of protozoa, and algae. Many protozoa cause disease, particularly human disease. So this is showing a picture of an amoeba. There is a type of amoeba that can get up into your nose, splash up into your nose when you go swimming in a natural body of water. And when that amoeba sticks to the inside of the nasal cavity, it can actually burrow through the nasal cavity into your brain and cause huge lesions to form in the brain, which eventually lead to death. So we were just in North Carolina on a family trip, and my aunt was telling me about dogs that were actually dying from this brain-eating amoeba. So that's kind of crazy that this little tiny amoeba can actually make its way through your brain and kill you. But a lot of protozoa cause primarily intestinal diseases. Algae are not going to typically cause human disease. So with algae, some of them have the capability of producing neurotoxins. And when shellfish eat the algae, they are accumulating these neurotoxins inside of them. So then when people come along and eat the algae, people can eat the shellfish, they can indirectly get sick from that toxic poisoning. Recently, there have been some cases of dogs dying of toxic algae and so forth. These algae are no joke. They produce neurotoxins, and if you consume the algae directly, in some cases, you can die from neurotoxicity. So protozoa, these are going to be animal-like in that they're heterotrophic. They eat other organisms to survive. And again, this is just an introduction, so I will be introducing these terms again later on. But just a way to kind of remember what heterotrophic is. I always tell my students to break down these terms into any stems that they can pick out. So if we break this down, we can see troph. Troph means to eat. So troph, think about a food trough. You're eating something. Hetero means different. So heterotrophic means that you're eating something different. You're eating another organism. You're eating something that you didn't make yourself. So heterotrophic, they eat other organisms in order to survive. While algae are photosynthetic and they are autotrophic. Again, if we break this down, autotrophic, troph is to eat, auto means self. So they're basically eating something that they've produced themselves, and they produce it through the process of photosynthesis. The protozoa are all, single-celled. While the algae can be single-celled or multicellular. The kingdom fungi. So what's pictured here is a mushroom, but mushrooms make up such a small component of the kingdom of fungi. Mushrooms are really the reproductive structures of the organism itself, and very few fungi actually have the capability of producing a mushroom. And we'll talk more about this later on in the semester, but fungi are kind of characterized by having chitin in their cell walls. So chitin is found in their cell walls. And these can be multicellular molds, unicellular yeasts, and then there's also some that are dimorphic, where if you grow them at one temperature, they're a yeast, and you grow them at a different temperature, they're a mold. Fungi are decomposers, so they're known as being saprophytic. So saprophytic means that they're going to release digestive enzymes to digest their environment, and then they absorb nutrients. The kingdom Plantaes, so these are all multicellular. And these are autotrophic. So these are going to rely on photosynthesis in order to produce their own food. There's a lot of different varieties of plants, and again, we'll explore these toward the end of the semester. And finally, we have the kingdom Animalia. So kingdom Animalia, all multicellular, and heterotrophic.